they do? What they do? Let's make sure that sound good. Let's make sure that sound good. Hold up. Let's make sure that sound good. What they do? All right, we're here. We here. What they do, man? What they do, YouTube? What they do, YouTube? Yes, sir. It's your host with the most. It's your host with the most. On the realest motherfucking boxing channel there is, Box or Die. It's your host with the most on the realest motherfucking boxing channel there is, Box or Die. You're talking boxing with your boy King David. You heard? If you haven't already, make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let the peoples out there in the highways and the byways know we talk that shit. You know what I'm saying? But yes, sir, let's go ahead and talk some good boxing, man. It's been a little minute since I've been up on here. Goddamn. It's been a little minute since I get on. And I know this is kind of a real interesting time to try to go live because I know a lot of people getting ready to tune in for the fights. You know what I'm saying? You know. But at the same time, I feel like this is kind of an ideal time to go live, you know, because I kind of want to make this live kind of short and sweet and to the point. You know what I'm saying? And if motherfuckers is out watching the fights, then ain't too many people gonna pop up in here. You know what I'm saying? But if the smoke come, the smoke come. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But we here talking about, you know what I'm saying, this fight, man, Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence. You heard? Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence is going on, you know what I mean? And you know, that's a little bit of a shock to the system, man. Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence is a bit of a shock to the system. Now, I can't say that I'm shocked. I can't say that I'm flabbergasted, you know what I'm saying, or anything like that. But I gotta say that this wasn't at the top of my mind, you know what I'm saying? As far as this fight actually happening, it wasn't anything that I foresaw, like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't nothing that I saw coming all the way, you know what I'm saying? But as I look at this fight and looking at the fact that, you know, we didn't hear any talks about it. We didn't hear any negotiations. We didn't hear anything like that. We didn't hear anything going on in the background about this fight. And all of a sudden it's done. It kind of leads me to believe that this fight, this was the plan all along. You know what I'm saying? It kind of makes me feel like this was the plan all along. You know what I'm saying? When I sit back and I look at the fact that this fight is done. We didn't hear anything about it. We didn't hear about any purse splits. We didn't hear about any of that shit. We look down, we look up, and we see a poster with Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence, and we got a date. And we got Vegas. You know what I'm saying? We won't per se have a venue, but we have a date and we have a location on where the fight is going to take place. You know what I'm saying? So with that type of thinking, it kind of leads me to believe that this was always the play. You know what I'm saying? But that shit aside, I think what has to be looked at is the fact that, is this real? Because yeah, you know, just hearing the news, you know, like I said, it's a shock to the system, but at the same time, it's like, is this for real? For real? Like, is this real? You know what I'm saying? Because boxing lately has been really like pump faking us. Boxing has really been faking us the whole time. You know what I'm saying? Acting like we getting certain shit and we not getting it. You know, boxing has been doing that. And one of the key players in that whole pump faking has been Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao has been the guy over the last 3 months that we've been hearing fight done, fight confirmed, going down, Saudi Arabia. Manny Pacquiao has been the name that's been floating around in this rumor mill. We've been hearing Manny Pacquiao's name over and over again alongside different fighters' names, and none of those fights have come to fruition. So, I mean, even with the fact that this fight is on BoxRec, even with the fact that Manny Pacquiao announced this fight himself on his own social media Instagram page, even with those things, can we really 100% have faith that this fight is actually real? Can we really have faith that that's what it in fact actually is? Because everybody thought that it was Ryan Garcia, man. I mean, look, think about it. Think about it. All in about 3 months, we had Manny Pacquiao, Ryan Garcia. We had Manny Pacquiao, Mikey Garcia. We had Manny Pacquiao, Terrence Crawford. And now we got Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence. All of that, all these names in the last 3 months, we've been hearing Manny Pacquiao getting ready to fight these guys. And all of these guys have sounded, all of these announcements, all of this news has sounded 100% sure like it sounds right now. All of it has, you know, all of it has. And we've got none of those fights, you know. So I guess I just want to be the one on record. I want to be the one on record that just goes to say, I don't know. Like, I don't know whether or not this fight is happening. I don't know. I just got to be the one on record that says that shit. You know what I mean? I got to. Just because the fuckery has been too strong. But with all that being said, with all that out the window, okay, as far as we know, this fight is real, okay? It's the real deal Holyfield. It's going down. I believe the date is in August. Pacquiao, Spence, you know, it's going down, you know? And my initial thoughts, you know, assuming that this fight is real, my initial thoughts is Al Heyman is a genius, man. Al Heyman has been playing chess this whole time, man. Al Heyman has been playing chess. Al Heyman has been moving the little puzzle pieces. He's been moving the cogs, you know what I'm saying, in the background. He's been doing very strategic things in the background in order to make shit happen. You know, he's been doing these little things, man. And you know, it's genius level things that he's been doing. You know, it really has been. You know, it really, really has been. Master tactician Al Heyman has been. You know, I think ultimately, man, I never really saw, you know, and this is beyond Al Heyman being a master tactician. I never really saw why Manny Pacquiao was looking to fight Terrence Crawford in the first place. You know what I'm saying? You know, as much as I wanted that fight to happen for Terrence Crawford, I never really saw why Manny was so interested in the fight. I actually did a video about the shit that I'm about to play right now. I did a video about the shit talking about how Manny had gone through the Ryan fight, how he had gone through the Mikey fight, and how now he was looking at Terrence Crawford. But it never really made sense to me why he was looking at Terrence Crawford as opposed to Errol Spence, which leads me to believe, which also is another thing that kind of leads me to believe that this was always the play, that this was always the move for Al Heyman and the PPC to get Manny Pacquiao in the ring with Errol Spence as opposed to Terrence Crawford. I mean, if you really think about it, man, if dudes really want to put their heads together and really start critically thinking about the shit, if dudes really want to do that, isn't Manny Pacquiao saying to Al Heyman? Isn't Manny Pacquiao an Al Heyman fighter? You know what I'm saying? Yes, he has a state of independence, but isn't he an Al Heyman fighter at the end of the day? He's advised and managed by Al Heyman. So to me, making a fight with Errol Spence would be much easier than making a fight with Terrence Crawford. You know what I'm saying? It would make more sense for Al Heyman to use Manny Pacquiao's name to build Errol Spence's name as opposed to using Manny Pacquiao to build Terrence Crawford's name. It would just make more sense. You know? It would just make more sense. So, I mean, like, it never really made sense that Manny was looking to fight Terrence Crawford. It never really made sense. That's why Manny was asking for $40 million from Terrence Crawford. I don't think Manny ever had any intention of fighting Terrence Crawford in the first place. I mean, you got to look at this shit from Manny Pacquiao's perspective. At the end of the day, Errol Spence is an easier fight. I mean, it just is. Errol Spence is an easier fight than Terrence Crawford. Errol Spence is flat-footed. Errol Spence tends to be gun shy from time to time. Errol Spence he can cut the ring off pretty decently, but you can give Errol Spence the angles and the speed and kind of neutralize him in different ways. You know what I'm saying? It's an easier fight than Terrence Crawford, a guy who was able to adapt, a guy who was able to change levels and use angles and fight and, you know what I mean, do different things, as opposed to Errol Spence, who for the most part is pretty one-dimensional. Errol Spence to me in a lot of ways is kind of like a more skilled version of Antonio Margarito. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion, as far as his skill set, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be disrespectful with it, but I just simply want to highlight the technical flaws, not the technical flaws, but I want to highlight the simplicity to Errol Spence's game as opposed to Terrence Crawford's. It's a lot easier to figure out Errol Spence than it is to figure out Terrence Crawford. And for me, if I'm Manny Pacquiao and I'm looking for a fight that would kind of solidify my legacy, and I'm looking for a winnable fight, I'm looking more in Errol Spence's direction than I am in Terrence Crawford's direction. You know what I'm saying? So now you got that Errol Spence is an easier fight. You got that Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao are both signed with Al Heyman. You got that Earl brings more money to the table. You know what I'm saying? He does. I can, I don't think there's a lot of people that wouldn't admit that Earl would bring more money to the table. That would be a bigger fight for boxing than a fight with Terrence Crawford. You know what I'm saying? And then also you couple that with the fact that Earl gets equal to or as much recognition, or Manny gets equal to or as much recognition for beating Errol Spence as he would Terrence Crawford. You know what I'm saying? He gets equal to or the same amount of credit as he would for beating Terrence Crawford. So it's like, why would you take a harder fight for the same amount of recognition and less money? It just never really made sense for me why Manny Pacquiao would choose to fight Terrence Crawford over Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? It never really made sense for me. And I see why, because this was the play all along. This was the play all along. The play was always to get Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford in the ring. I wouldn't be surprised if Manny was intentionally being used to ruin certain fights. You know what I mean? And people knowing full well that Manny and Earl were going to fight this entire time. Look how quickly this fight got done. You know what I'm saying? Look how quickly this fight got done. And again, let's not talk about the fact that we didn't hear anything about any splits. We didn't hear anything about any of that bullshit that all you niggas like to talk about. Pay-per-view sales and all that shit. We didn't hear nothing about that, and the fight is done. So I mean, I really feel like this was the play all along. I feel like Errol Spence and Manny Pacquiao made a lot more sense than Manny Pacquiao and Terrence Crawford. I just do. This sucks for Terrence Crawford, but I feel like he got played a little bit. I feel like he got played. I feel like he was a pawn in Al Heyman's ultimate plan, which was to kind of waste his fucking time. Kind of waste his fucking time. Dangle the carrot in front of his face. I feel like it was that kind of thing. And then take that motherfucker away. I kind of feel like he was the dude holding the carrot with the stick. That's how I feel like this was with Al Heyman. Why would Manny Pacquiao need $40 million to fight Terrence Crawford, man? That none of that shit made sense. Why would he need $40 million to a guarantee of $40 million? We're not talking about $40 million. We're not talking about like that after pay-per-view sales, anything like that. We're talking about a guarantee of $40 million. Why would Manny Pacquiao need a guarantee of $40 million plus pay-per-view back in to fight Manny Pacquiao? I mean, to fight Terrence Crawford. You know, Errol Spence, you know, is he getting that much? Is he getting a guarantee of $40 million to fight Errol Spence? I sincerely hope so, because if he's not, again, this will confirm my suspicions of this being the play the entire time. If he's not, this will confirm my suspicions of this being the play the entire time. Because why would you take anything less than $40 million to fight Errol Spence if it's as dangerous a fight as it is for Terrence Crawford? You know what I'm saying? Why would you take a more or equal to dangerous fight for less money? If you needed $40 million in order to fight Terrence Crawford, then you should need $40 million in order to fight Errol Spence. So is he getting $40 million to fight Errol Spence? These are the questions that we need answers to, you know? And again, it further confirms my suspicions that this was the play all along, but let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. You know, all this shit out the window, man. I think ultimately this is a big win for Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence, this is a big win for him. You know what I'm saying? Errol Spence has a chance to double his money and star power with a fight with Manny Pacquiao. Win, lose, or draw, he's gonna make a considerable amount of money. Okay, win, lose, or draw, he's gonna grow his star power. You know what I'm saying? A lot more people are gonna know who he is as a result of this fight. Win, lose, or draw, this is a big win for Errol Spence at the end of the day, and you can't really take that away. This is a big win for Errol Spence. Win, lose, or draw. You know what I'm saying? Ain't too many people, you know, gonna be able to refute that. You know what I'm saying? And if you're new to the building, man, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, man. We always talking that boxing shit over here. But, you know, I think if you Errol Spence, man, this is a big win for you. You know, it really is. He gets to grow his star power. He gets to double his money. It's a win-win situation for Errol Spence as far as that's concerned. You know, and if you're Pacquiao, we already went through the benefits of Pacquiao. If you're Pacquiao, you get an easier fight than what it would have been with Terrence Crawford. You get an opportunity to probably make a little bit more money. You know what I'm saying? Possibly make a little bit more money. You know, you got more belts. You know, Earl does have two of those belts. He has the WBC and he also has the IBF. So you get 2 belts. And then at the same time, you know what I'm saying? At the same time, you get to fight somebody who gives you just as much credit, if not the same, just as much credit as you would have gotten for beating somebody like a Errol Spence, or sorry, a Terrence Crawford. Hunter PR in the building says blame Al Heyman for not fighting Manny. He killed the fight. He killed the fight when he and Bud were signed to him. I mean, that's a possibility. I mean, Aram could have killed the fight. It's possible. You know what I'm saying? But let's not forget that Manny Pacquiao off rip said that he needed $40 million in order to fight Bud Crawford. Why you need $40 million for a fight, though? You think he's getting $40 million for an Al Heyman fight? I'm talking about $40 million guaranteed. That's what he said he wanted for Terrence Crawford plus back end. He wanted I think a 80-20 back end plus a guarantee of $40 million. So you think he's getting a $40 million guarantee with Al Heyman? I seriously doubt it. I seriously doubt he's getting 40. I seriously doubt he's getting 40. He may be getting 20, but I seriously doubt he's getting 40. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it was reported that just the funds didn't come through. You know, they had some financial backers in the background and it just didn't work out the way they thought it was going to work out. But why you need that much money, though? Why you need that much money if you Manny Pacquiao? You know, to fight Terrence Crawford. That's the issue in itself. You know what I'm saying? You know, but at the end of the day, it's like this, man. At the end of the day, it's like this. It's like this, right? If you Errol Spence, right? if you Errol Spence, your star power and your money grows with this fight. But an emphatic win over Manny Pacquiao really boosts your career if you're Errol Spence. It really takes you to another level of superstardom. You know what I'm saying? It really does. It takes you to another level of superstardom. It does. It really, really, really does. You know, this is a big win. And if he's able to get in there and completely and utterly demolish Manny Pacquiao, it takes him to a new level. You know what I'm saying? But on the other hand, if he gets in there and he has a tough fight, or God forbid loses to Manny Pacquiao, he has to start from scratch. He has to start from ground zero. He has to work his way up to the top once again. My guy David John is in the building. Shout out to you, David John. My guy King David. Yes, sir, in the building. Yes, sir, in the building, man. Talking about this Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence fight, man. It's crazy. I wasn't expecting to do any type of live like this, but you know, boxing has been crazy lately, man. And you know, I got a whole nother live I got to do about Wilder and Fury. I ain't gonna really talk about that in this live, but we're gonna have to probably set that up for tomorrow while I talk about Wilder and Fury. You know what I'm saying? But you know, Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence right now is the topic of conversation. So let's pick it up from here. But yes, sir, David John. Shout out to my guy David John in the building. Yes, sir. But yeah, man. If Errol Spence fucks around and loses to Manny Pacquiao, man, he starts from ground zero, man. He starts from ground zero. And the thing about it is, man, Manny Pacquiao has a legitimate chance to beat Errol Spence, man. I think Manny Pacquiao can beat Errol Spence. For sure, for sure. David John says, all I'm saying is he better get upwards of 40 million. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Because if you need 40 million for Terrence Crawford, then goddamn, you need at least 40 million for Errol Spence if he's tougher than Terrence Crawford. You know what I'm saying? If that's as difficult of a fight as Terrence Crawford, then I feel like you should get more money. I feel like that's the remedy in boxing these days. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's the remedy. If you're getting 40 for Manny, then if you're getting 40 for Terrence, then you need at least 40 for Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? Hunter PR in the building says 2 separate occasions. The 40 million was the recent BS. The first happened when they both were signed. The video clip is out there. Bob saying he feared for Manny health. I remember that bullshit. I remember that shit. Shaky stuff there. Shaky stuff there, man. All that is a bunch of sketchy shit. You know what I'm saying? All that is a bunch of sketchy shit. Because we know Bob Arum is, he be lying and shit. Even so, even if he was responsible for that one, the second time around, Manny did say he needed $40 million. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that first time around, he asked for $20 million guaranteed, right? He needed $20 million. First, it was $20 million. That was the first time that fight thing happened. First, he needed $20 million. Okay. That's when Bob came out with that bullshit talking about, oh, yeah, he feared for Manny health and all this old goofy shit. But then the second time, he needed $40 million guaranteed in order to make the fight with Terrence Crawford. Sound like he's just throwing arbitrary ass numbers out there in the air. That's what it sounded like to me, and sound like he had no intention of actually fighting Terrence Crawford in the first place. At very least, I need to see at least 20 million guaranteed for Manny Pacquiao in this fight. Wouldn't you agree, Hunter PR? That at least 20 million needs to be guaranteed for this fight. At least. Come on, at least 20 million, because he started out with 20 million for Terrence Crawford. And then it went from 20 million to 40 million for Terrence Crawford. So Manny should be getting at least 20 million guaranteed for this fight. At least. Anything else is simply uncivilized. For sure. And it proves my point when I say Manny had no intention of fighting Errol Spence to begin with. of Terrence Crawford to begin with, and him fighting Errol Spence was always the play. But in addition to that, is Manny clearly perceives Errol as the easier fight than Terrence Crawford, because you simply do not take less money to fight somebody that's harder. You know what I'm saying? Hunter PR says, I think 30 million is the number. If not, then it's some BS in the game. Yes, absolutely. 30 million. Should be 30 million, 40. It should be something like that, because he needed 40 million for Terrence, even if it's 30 million, because he needed 40 million for Terrence. So if he ain't getting 40 million, then just like you said, there's some bullshit up in the game, man. We need to figure out what's going on out here in the streets. And if you know out here to the channel, man, make sure you hit that sub button, man. Make sure you hit that like button and the sub button. We always talking that boxing shit, man. I'm gonna be coming back out here live tonight too for a post-fight review to Jose Ramirez versus Josh Taylor. Everybody in the building, I hope y'all come through later on tonight when we talking about Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor. That's a big fight. But back on point. You know what I'm saying? But if Errol loses this fight, man, if Errol somehow loses this fight, you know, he goes even further down the Keith Thurman path as far as like what he's doing right now. You know what I'm saying? He really does. He really does become Keith Thurman number 2. He really, you know what I'm saying? He followed the Keith Thurman blueprint. And that's another thing, man, because if you look at Keith Thurman's career, how he was brought up and the route that he went, they followed the exact same blueprint for Keith Thurman. They followed it for Manny Pacquiao. I mean, for Errol Spence. God damn, I be fucking up these names, man. For Manny Pacquiao. You know what I'm saying? The exact same blueprint that they had for Keith Thurman, that they used for Keith Thurman, they're using for Errol Spence. Same blueprint. The same Danny, same Sean blueprint, same Manny Pacquiao blueprint. Another thing that leads me to believe that this was always the play, because the exact replica of this playbook was already done via Keith Thurman. You know what I'm saying? Keith Thurman was the exact replica of this playbook. You know, and just like Keith Thurman, Errol Spence can go in here and lose. You know? Errol Spence can go in here and take an L. You know what I'm saying? He really could. And it's a lot of people out here, man. And you know, and another thing, man, if Manny Pacquiao wins, man, if Manny Pacquiao wins for me, this is his last fight. He retires after this. Manny Pacquiao beats Errol Spence and retires. I don't think that there's any chance of him fighting Terrence Crawford after this, if he somehow wins this fight. You know? The circumstances are even the same, man. Even if you look at Keith Thurman, because everybody thought Keith Thurman was going to beat Manny too. Just like how everybody thinks Errol Spence is going to beat Manny. You know? But Manny's a different breed, man. Manny's on a different level, man. And, you know, I feel like with Manny Pacquiao, he's one of those dudes that he looked like something when you watch him on TV, and then when you get in there with him, it's something completely different. You know what I'm saying? But I do feel like, I feel like at least for Errol, he's going to have probably Mayweather in his ear. He's going to have dudes in his corner that Keith Thurman didn't have, that's going to be able to better prepare him for somebody like a Manny Pacquiao. But that doesn't guarantee you win. That don't guarantee shit, man, because, you know, he could still go up in here and lay a goddamn egg. So here's the thing, man. So we're going to go ahead and switch gears. Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing that people aren't talking about, right? Here's the thing that a lot of motherfuckers ain't talking about right now, bro. Like, for real, for real. What happened to Errol Spence's undisputed run? You know what I'm saying? A lot of the Errol Spence fan people, a lot of y'all fan people out there for Errol Spence, a lot of y'all excuse for why Errol wasn't fighting Terrence Crawford was because he was going after this undisputed run, right? A lot of y'all was saying, well, Earl's going after the 3 belts. Earl's going after the 3 belts. Earl about to get this 3rd belt, and after that, he come Terrence Crawford way. Earl about to go do this. He finna go collect these belts on his side of the street, and then he going to Terrence Crawford. Earl finna go and do this. He finna go and do that, and then he going to Terrence Crawford. Y'all kept saying it. Like a broken record, y'all kept saying it. Like a broken record, y'all kept repeating these things that you perceived Errol Spence was doing in order to justify his behavior thus far in completely and utterly ducking Terrence Crawford. You know, I spoke to a lot of Errol Spence fans, and a lot of y'all would even go as far as to say, well, y'all would even admit, some of y'all would even, I would ask y'all directly, so do you feel like up until now Errol Spence was avoiding the fight? A lot of you would say yes. You would be like, yes, he's been avoiding the fight. Yeah, he's been avoiding the fight. But he gonna get this 3rd belt. And then, because, you know, really he trying to get all his belts on his side of the street. He gonna get this 3rd belt, or he gonna get this belt, and then he gonna come see Terrence Crawford. So my question for you all, okay? And I'm more than aware right now that apparently the WBA may strip Eugenio Ugas, or may downgrade his status from super champion to regular champion in order to accommodate this Errol versus Pacquiao fight. I'm well aware that that may happen. I'm well aware that that may happen. But if that doesn't happen, do y'all still feel the same way about Errol Spence that y'all felt before? Do y'all still feel like Errol is a man of his word? Do y'all still feel that way? Do y'all still feel like he's going to collect his belts on his side of the street and then he's going to come after Terrence Crawford? Do y'all still feel that way? Because this would once again prove the point that Errol has decided to abandon his plans to become undisputed, because he abandoned it in the first place when he fought Mikey Garcia. But this would once again prove the point that Errol decided to abandon his plans to become undisputed in order to go after a big money fight with Manny Pacquiao. This would once again show you guys that. This would once again prove the point that Errol, for whatever reason, simply isn't interested in the Terrence Crawford fight and never has been. This would once again prove that. Why can you take a big money fight, or why can you take a fight with Manny Pacquiao, but you can't take a fight with Terrence Crawford? David John in the building says he said it when they met up at the hooker fight. He said he was going to fight Pacquiao when they met up at the hooker fight. He did say he wanted to fight Pacquiao, but at the time, Pacquiao had the WBA belt. So a lot of Errol fans justify his behavior at this point, Davey. A lot of them justify his behavior saying that he's going to pick up all these belts, right? He's going to pick up all these belts, and then he going to see Terrence. And everything that he's been doing this thus far has been to pick up these belts. But my question is, if Manny doesn't have a belt, then what's the purpose of fighting Manny? For the Errol Spence fans out there, if Manny Pacquiao doesn't have a belt, why make this fight happen? If you're Errol Spence and supposedly your mission is to get all the belts. That's what you're trying to do. That's why you've been putting off a Terrence Crawford fight, a guy that's been calling you out since he was at 140 pounds. That's been your reasoning for why you've avoided the Terrence Crawford fight, because you're going to get all the belts. Why take a Manny Pacquiao fight, a guy who doesn't have a belt? David John says, yes, they do. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, we still don't know. I mean, Manny could come up on the belt. If Manny comes up on this belt, they strip Ugas, Manny somehow gets this WBA belt. It'll be some bullshit. It would be. Okay, but Manny, okay, but it would be for the WBA belt. That would be cool. But if Manny doesn't have that WBA super belt, then what's the purpose of the fight? And this fight hasn't been announced as a 3-belt championship fight as of yet. We don't know if that may change. But as of right now, this isn't for 3 belts. So if you're Errol Spence and you're that fixated on picking up all the belts, that's really what your motivation in life is right now. Why waste your time with an Errol Spence fight? I mean, with a Manny Pacquiao fight. You know what I'm saying? Why put that on hold for Manny? You know? And the fact of the matter is, all you Errol Spence people, man, out there, I'm going to need y'all to keep the same energy. I'm going to need y'all to keep the same energy for Errol Spence that y'all had for Terrence Crawford when a lot of y'all found out that he was fighting Manny Pacquiao. Okay? Because we're not going to sit up here and forget that a lot of the Errol Spence fans got on Terrence Crawford's case for taking the fight with Manny Pacquiao. I remember y'all saying that Manny was too old. I remember y'all saying that why is Terrence chasing Manny? How you gonna chase Manny all these years? So are y'all gonna say that about Errol Spence? Is Errol Spence now chasing Manny Pacquiao? Is he chasing it now that this fight is done? Has Earl been chasing Manny? You know what I'm saying? I remember y'all saying that before. Oh, that Terrence Crawford's chasing Manny Pacquiao. Why would you chase Manny Pacquiao? I remember y'all saying Terrence can take 80-20 from Manny Pacquiao, but not 60-40 from Errol Spence. I remember y'all saying that. I need y'all to keep the same energy for Errol Spence that you have Terrence Crawford, because a lot of you dudes had some real aggressive energy towards Terrence Crawford for this fight. And I'm not talking about Errol Spence fans, but I'm talking about the fanboys, the dudes who unequivocally support Errol Spence in every single decision that he decides to make. So not only is Errol Spence, as of right now, because we're talking about now, we're not talking about what may happen in the future. We're not talking about the possibility of Ugas being stripped from the WBA Super and Manny being elevated to WBA Super. As of right now, your Dennis Ugas is still the WBA Super Champion. So we're not talking about any possibilities right now. As of right now, we're talking about Manny Pacquiao, a guy who has no belt. Why would Errol Spence divert his path from undisputed to seek a Manny Pacquiao fight, a guy with no belt, considering his entire reasoning for avoiding a fight with Terrence Crawford has been to pursue undisputed? So again, y'all Errol Spence people, I'm gonna need y'all to keep the same energy. I'm gonna need y'all to keep the same energy. And then in addition to that, okay, let's talk about what this split gonna look like. Let's talk about this split. Because a lot of you dudes were telling Terrence Crawford that he needed to take Errol Spence was so adamant on Terrence Crawford taking the 60-40. Okay. He was so adamant about Terrence Crawford taking the 60-40 because he's the big fish. But I wonder what kind of split took place for this Manny Pacquiao fight. I wonder what kind of split took place for this Manny Pacquiao fight. Do you think Manny Pacquiao, and for the people out there listening, do y'all think Manny Pacquiao took 40% A 40% split to Errol Spence? You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna need y'all to answer that, people out there. Y'all think that happened? The Jimba says the strategy could work out favorably for Spence if the fight is made between Thurman and Ugas. The winner could face each other at the end of the year for the belt. That might be the play, but that means he would have to see somebody, another person that he don't want to see, which is Keith Thurman, because Keith Thurman is beating you, Dennis Ugas. He beats you, Dennis Ugas, and gets that WBA super. That would be nice. A lot of people are saying they think that Terrence Crawford should go after Ugas, but I don't know that right now. I don't know that any kind of business can be done between Top Rank and PBC right now. Everything, you know, I mean, we just got a Fury we got Fury Wilder 3 done. You know what I'm saying? But look what it took in order for that fight to actually happen. You know, look what it took. So I don't know that at this point Al Heyman will be open to a Crawford Ugas fight, but I mean Thurman Ugas, that was always a fight that I was cool about. I'd actually like that. I would like if Thurman and Ugas fought, and then Thurman picked up that WBA belt, and then Errol would have to see Thurman for that belt, because Thurman is another guy that Errol don't want to see right now. Thurman is another guy that Errol don't want to see right now. The easy Errol is content on taking the easy road, which consists of Sean Porter's and Danny Garcia's. But if we throw a Thurman in there, it might not be that easy of a road. He's fighting Manny Pacquiao, which is a really difficult fight, and I don't think there's any boxing fans out there who would disagree with it. But you know, this is a fight that Errol should win at the end of the day. This is a fight he should win. He's the younger, stronger guy. He should win this fight. You know what I'm saying? He should. He could still lose, but he should win this fight. But back on point. Back on point. Do y'all think that Manny took the 40% split that Errol was demanding Terrence to take? Do y'all think that Manny took their 40% as far as the pay-per-view buys? Because if he didn't, wouldn't that mean that Errol's not the big fish that he claims to be? Wouldn't that mean he ain't really the big fish if he had to take the lower split or to a Manny Pacquiao? You know what I'm saying? Errol was so adamant about Terrence Crawford taking a 40% split to his 60, but yet and still he turns around and gives up probably more than likely a lion's share of the actual split to Manny Pacquiao. So I find that to be very interesting. You know what I'm saying? For me, at the end of the day, not really the big fish like we all thought. But let's do this. Let's do this. Let's address the elephant in the room at the end of the day. Let's address the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room really is this fight brings us no closer to a Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford fight. It really doesn't. It doesn't bring us any closer to that fight. It doesn't bring us any closer to Undisputed. It doesn't. It really, honestly, and truly doesn't, man. And you know, it's sad. I mean, this is great for Errol Spence's career. Again, it builds he gets a chance to build his star power. He gets a chance to make more money. He gets a chance to really do some big things in the sport. You know what I'm saying? But as far as the fight that we all want in the welterweight division, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, as far as that fight that all of us as boxing fans want, this brings us no closer to that fight. And that right there in itself is sad. That right there in itself is sad. You know, we all want that Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford fight. But Errol Spence goes into this Manny Pacquiao fight, and if he's able to beat Manny Pacquiao, his overly inflated ego becomes even more overly inflated. his unbearable nature in the negotiation table becomes even more unbearable. The Errol Spence that couldn't get the deal done with Terrence Crawford becomes the Errol Spence that couldn't get the deal done with Terrence Crawford times 10 after a win with a Manny Pacquiao. You know what I'm saying? The fight just simply doesn't happen as a result. And you know, a lot of people after this fight are going to be saying that Terrence should take the lower split. Terrence should do this. Terrence should do that. You know what I'm saying? Because Errol fought Manny Pacquiao. Errol beat Manny Pacquiao and possibly obtain 3 of the 4 belts. And he may actually do that, man. He may actually attain 3 of the 4 belts. You know, he may actually do that. And that would be a big win for Errol Spence. But at the end of the day, again, it doesn't bring us any closer to the fight. Because if you're Terrence Crawford, you don't give a damn about none of that because you hold that WBA and all you really got to do is stay black and die at the end of the day. So, you know, I think that in itself, like this fight, I think brings us all to the realization that that fight really will probably never happen, you know? And I think that in itself is real sad, man, you know? We all want that fight to happen, man, and it ain't happening. You know, Terrence understands that undisputed ain't undisputed until you got that WBO. So it's either you gonna come to the negotiations correct or you don't come at all. And that's gonna be his attitude. And honestly, I support that. You know, Terrence Crawford ain't obligated under no circumstances to take anything less than what he believes he's worth. You know what I'm saying? And Errol Spence is going to believe he's worth more than what he actually is, much more than he already believes he's worth more than he actually is before Manny Pacquiao fight. So imagine after a Manny Pacquiao fight. Imagine what he believes his worth is after a Manny Pacquiao fight. And it's like if you're Terrence Crawford, you don't really give a fuck about that. You're undefeated in 3 different weight divisions. You got the WBO champion at 147. Errol can't be undisputed. Earl's either going to have to come correct or move up or move down or do something, you know? So, you know, I think that's the sad part about this. You know what I'm saying? The Jimba says, Crawford recently said that the fight where Errol Spence is behind him and won't happen. I believe both fighters have let the opportunity leave. Absolutely. You know, Terrence said he's done with the Errol Spence fight, you know. But honestly, even though he's saying he's done with the fight, man, if Errol came to the negotiation table correct, he would entertain the idea of a fight. I doubt that he would seriously turn it down. But Errol got to come to the negotiate. Errol can make the fight happen if he came to the table to try to negotiate. You know what I'm saying? Like a grown ass man instead of all this petty kid shit. You know what I'm saying? But my thing is, what I'm saying is after Errol Spence, if he gets this win over Manny Pacquiao, and that's a if he gets this win over Manny Pacquiao, I mean, Earl already has a high self-worth. He already believes he's worth X amount. You know what I'm saying? He already believes he's a big fish. He already believes he's this and that he deserves an 80-20 split over Terrence Crawford. If he believes that at this point, where does his self-worth go after a Manny Pacquiao fight? And how does that help us get towards undisputed? It doesn't. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't. It doesn't get us nowhere near undisputed. It actually pushes undisputed even further away from where it already was. You know? Only way Earl gets undisputed is if Terrence Crawford moves up to 154 pounds. You know, if Terrence Crawford moved up to 154 and you know, dropped the belt, vacated the belt, went after Jermell, you know what I'm saying, did some shit like that, you know. And to me, if I'm Terrence Crawford, I'm not considering that Jermell Charlo is a PBC fighter, and we know how they like to play. over at PBC. Not even just they, because a lot of people like to narrow it down to PBC. At the end of the day, all these dudes out here are dirty as fuck. They all look to try to play chess. They all do underhanded, sneaky snake shit. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day. But considering how the game is being played by both sides, I'll put it like that. Considering how the game is being played on both sides, if I'm Terrence Crawford, I'm not vacating my belt unless I'm assured that I get a shot at the champion, which is Jermell Charlo, within the next 2 fights. I signed maybe a 2, possibly 3 fight deal with PBC that has Jermell Charlo's name on it. And that's it. That's the only way I sign a PBC. That's the only way I move up in weight, because honestly, these dudes can play. And you know, here's the thing about these mandatories and stuff like that. Dudes like Jermell Charlo and stuff like that, and these dudes can play keep away for years. These dudes can go years without having to fight mandatories. These dudes can put mandatories off for God knows how goddamn long. I would hope that it wouldn't take all that for Jermell Charlo to try to make a fight with Terrence Crawford, a naturally smaller dude. But if I'm Terrence Crawford, I'm not going up in weight. I'm not campaigning at that weight unless I'm assured a big fight at that weight division. I'm assured a chance to get an opportunity at one of those belts. You know what I'm saying? I'm not doing that unless I have that as an opportunity and it's guaranteed. And I can go after somebody in court if it's not honored. I'm not doing nothing like that. So, like, you know, if I'm not doing it, if I can't leverage that into a play, I'm staying at 147 pounds. I'm looking for the biggest fights I can find at 147 pounds, and I'm retaining my WBO belt until it's time to retire. You know what I'm saying? Or until I see an opportunity to go after a big fight in another weight division at 154, or maybe even move up 2 weight divisions to 160 to try to do something real big towards the end of my career. But that's how I'm playing it at the end of the day. And then Errol Spence, he could, you know, he could continue to do what he do on his quote unquote side of the street. You know, he can continue after this Manny Pacquiao fight. There's really nobody else for him to really fight. He could fight your Dennis Ugas. Maybe he could fight Keith Thurman. That would be a big fight. He got maybe 2 fights. He got maybe 1 big fight over there. You Dennis Ugas. And then who does he really have left? You know what I'm saying? He can continue to do his thing and Terrence can continue to do his thing. You know what I'm saying? But my point is, Earl's never going to be undisputed without a Terrence Crawford, and vice versa. They need each other, support each other's careers. And if Earl's not willing to come to the negotiation, if Earl's not willing to come to the negotiation table in a respectful manner and try to get the fight done, then the shit's just not going to happen. And if I'm Terrence Crawford, I'm saying, fuck you, Earl. Go on to your side of the street, take your bitch ass over there, and I'm going to do my thing. Fuck all that. The Jinbei says Crawford's next fight will be more than likely the winner of tonight's fight. Yeah, you know, that's part of him doing his thing. You know, Terrence on his side, man, Terrence is like, I can already see where his mindset is with this whole thing. Terrence is like, well, look, man, you know, fuck it. I done tried to make these fights with these PBC dudes. None of these, it's hard as fuck trying to make fights with these dudes, because these dudes, they want 10 trillion gajillion dollars for a fight. You know what I'm saying? You know, they playing fucking games. They want to fight, then they don't want to fight. They making up all these little pussy excuses. They doing this, they doing that. Fuck all that, man. I'm gonna fight who I can fight, okay, and I'm gonna call it a day. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's a real, you know, fighting an undisputed champion. You know, whether it be Josh Taylor or Jose Ramirez, that would mean big things for Terrence Crawford's career. You know, that would mean really big things for Terrence Crawford's career, and that's what he's gonna do. It makes all the sense in the world for him to do that. You know, so I mean, you know, that's where I'm at with it. You know, that's where I'm at with it. That's where I'm at with it. You know what I'm saying? If I'm Terrence Crawford, either come correct or don't come at all. Period. You know? Yeah, man. But look, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this shit up. I'm going to be back on here live later on tonight after Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez, man. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video, man, so we can continue to keep growing, man. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, all that good shit, man. But until next time, man, I'm gonna holler at y'all. Peace.